Hello everyone, Mark here, Mark's Max Muscle, and we have a very special presentation for you guys today for your first of two You Pick Tuesday videos. This request was sent in by Tyler Ryan, like for the best Hoo-Ha pose of all time video that Mark keeps teasing us with. It's actually the Whoo-Aww, not Hoo-Ha, but I guess both are acceptable, but when I write it down, it's gonna be Hoo-Ha, just like Al Pacino says. Anyway, guys, this is actually Ty Jordan, friend of mine. He exhibits the Hoo-Ha or Hoo-Ah pose to a T. This is exactly what I am looking for in a Hoo-Ah. And I thought because this is a special You Pick Tuesday video and not just a regular comparison, I thought I would go through the history books and see who actually was the first person to hit this. And Eugene Sandow, of course, was the guy that I checked first. And this was really the only resemblance to a Hoo-Ah pose. You could see where he is looking at. His eyes are looking towards maybe another camera, maybe an audience. Now that would be the angle, because his arm is kind of straightened and his forearm kind of bent. That's kind of a Hoo-Ah, but not really. Then, of course, you flip the pages of the history books, bodybuilding, and then there was guys like Steve Reeves. And this is as close as it comes. And it is almost that pose, the Hoo-Ah pose, but I mean he's holding his arm. It's more of a side tricep. And again, you flip the page one more time, and then there's Bill Pearl. Bill Pearl. This is maybe even closer, but this is more closely related to the side relaxed position. And guys like Arnold Schwarzenegger also hit this. And like I said, more of a side relaxed, but he is flexing his tricep, which is reminiscent to a mantis position pose, which is, I guess, closely related to the Hoo-Ah, but not quite. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is a very old picture of Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I don't know if he was maybe flipping through some poses and accidentally stumbled upon this one. But to be honest with you, this is as early as I can find a hit to a T, like to a spec, a Hoo-Ah pose. And that's what this is. His forearm is bent, flexing his pecs, almost as if a cross between a side chest and a side tricep pose. And when you talk about Arnold, you got to talk about Frank Zane, the gentleman who defeated Arnold. And I found this picture, and it was in a photo shoot. This photo shoot, and he didn't hit this pose on the stage. I don't know if he just thought of it here. But this is an exact Hoo-Ha. And this is an even better representation than the one that Arnold hit earlier on in his career, which I don't really count. But food for thought. This is not a very earlier on edition of Frank Zane. This is perhaps a little bit later on in his career. Ladies and gentlemen, take a look at Robbie Robinson. He is my favorite bodybuilder of all time. And in my opinion, he was hitting this before Frank Zane. Not only that, but this guy was hitting it on stage as a mandatory shot. He was using it as a side tricep, I believe, at some certain points of his career. But man, oh man, it is not hard to find a Hoo-Ah pose position of one Robbie Robinson. I mean, come on, guys. Here he is dueling it out with Phil Hill. Is that Phil Hill? He had a good Hoo-Ah pose too, but I mean, Robbie really displayed those obliques. And the guy, I mean, go through his history. Here he is in his late 40s hitting the shot. Here he is in his 50s hitting the shot. Robbie Robinson is the innovator. Here he is in his 70s, maybe 60s. But I mean, he's 70 now and he's still probably hitting the shot. But this is just a testament to not only the quality of his pose, but I mean the lineage behind it. I mean, the guy really made this pose fashionable. And food for thought. They put this out in a magazine. I don't know exactly the magazine, but this is after he won the 1994 Masters Olympia, Robbie Robinson. And then they showed Dorian In the background, of course, he was the Mr. Olympia, but he wasn't the Masters Olympia, as Robbie's little cartoon is saying there. But do you notice what pose Robbie is hitting here? He's hitting the Hoo-Ha, the Whoo-Aww scent of a woman, scent of a bodybuilder. Anyway, guys, it's Robbie's pose. Fast forward a little bit through the history. Here's Lee Haney, and you know what, guys? If you know a lot about Lee Haney, he patterned his career. He patterned his physique around Robbie's. In fact, here's a little backstory. When Lee Haney was just a kid, his mother gave him the go-ahead and said, "You go ahead, do whatever you want, dear." And he went and drew a great big picture of Robbie Robinson on his wall. Can you imagine that one? So, of course, he took the pose from Robbie as a sign of respect, and he made it, outstanding. Here's a little backstage shootout. Joseph Wilkosh, I apologize, Joseph Wilkosh and Ed Corney. A nice little shootout backstage. So let's go through the 80s, and it became a very fashionable pose for a lot of gentlemen, even guys like Rich Gaspari, who really, I don't know that were so suited to this pose. And here's what I mean. Take a look at Vince Taylor in 1991. This guy was built for this pose. Maybe even slightly better quality than maybe even Lee Haney or Robbie Robinson. This guy was outstanding. Here he is snapping the shot with his eye patch. Ha 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 ha. This YouTuber be high, says I. And this is actually Vince saying, "Ah." He's finishing off the whoo. He just said whoo, and then he's going, "Ah." Outstanding, guys. Then there was Sean Ray. He always hit this pose. Was he as good as the other guys? I don't know. This is him in his prime, and I don't know if he's as impressive. I can tell you one thing for sure. This guy here, to the date right here, this was the best one that I've seen so far. Andreas Munzer. And I'm telling you right now, guys, from the full body perspective, the tricep, everything, this is your perfect Hoo-Ha. I'm telling you right now. And just to do a comparison, this is Dorian Yates hitting it. Nasser El-Sanbadi hit it. Even Kevin Levrone hit a very impressive Hoo-Ha pose. But none of them as good as Andreas's, I don't think. But then there was Flex Wheeler. And this is just to show you how good he was. I'm comparing him against Chris Cormier. And he's not really exhibited in this one. Not his best pose. More like a Ronnie Coleman hit this one a lot. But I'm not going to put him in it. Because, look at Flex Wheeler, guys. Call it what you do. Call it what it is. If you want to point the finger to synthol, site enhancement oil, I don't care. This guy here was outstanding in this pose, and hands down, maybe even better than Andreas Munzer. Then you flip into the 2000s, and there was a different style of Hoo-Ha, I guess. Maybe both arms straightened a little bit. And there's Dennis James. That was Jay Cutler, by the way. And Dennis James, not the best, really. Craig Titus hit a different style one. Not bad at all. Here's, I believe, Craig Richardson. I believe that is his name. I apologize if it's not his name. If I got that wrong, I'm going to comment. But this guy hit an outstanding and very underrated Hoo-Ha pose. Unbelievable. Then they all started hitting it. Gunter Schlierkamp, Johnny O. Jackson. Here's even Gustavo Badal. He hit a pretty darn good Hoo-Ha as well. And your champion, your classic champion, Phil Heath. This was before he even won the title. He always hit this pose. And you know what? Maybe not, with no disrespect to Phil Heath, but maybe not the best physique for this pose. I have to mention Dallas McCarver. God rest his soul, he hit the Hoo-Ha. So did Kai Green. And you know what? If it wasn't for that really highly inserted tricep, I think Kai might have had the best Hoo-Ha, maybe of all time. Here is the Olympia champion, Sean Rhoden. And he is hitting it. And speaking of highly inserted triceps, He may take the pudding, the cake, but man, he's ripped. He's chiseled. He's peeled, so peeled. I knew I had to do a little bit of a Rhoden impression, or you guys would have maybe said something about it. Here's a would-be champion. Hattie. He hits a very good Hoo-Ha pose. And so does Brandon Curry. In fact, Brandon Curry's maybe one of the best. Maybe one of the best of modern times anyway. And speaking of Hattie being a would-be champion, here's Akeem Williams. And as tilted as this picture is, look how good he looks. This is maybe his best Hoo-Ha pose here in 2019 rather. So that is pretty much the history of the Hoo-Ha pose, guys. And to be honest, I think Robbie Robinson should represent this pose. This should be called the Robbie Robinson or the Whoo-Ha pose, because not only did he make it fashionable, but the guy held the pose for more years than anybody, and it would be impossible to defeat him. But hands down, of course, if the judges were to judge this one, there'd be other guys, like Flex Wheeler and things of that nature, that would defeat him. So if you did do that type of competition, who would have the best Hoo-Ha pose? Well, that's easy. Rolly Winkler, Boo Bunder, the Beast. I'm telling you right now, guys, what he lacks in maybe oblique development, he makes up for with tricep development. This guy, in my opinion, he's all tricep. He's all tricep. And it would be impossible to defeat this man in a straight-ahead, one-on-one Hoo-Ha matchup. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Robbie may be the greatest of all time, but I think Rolly Winkler is maybe the best of all time to hit this Hoo-Ha pose. Anyway, guys, I really hope you enjoyed this presentation, because as you may or may not know, I did give this pose the name Whoo-Aww, and as ridiculous as it does sound, if you know me, it's pretty tame, really. Mark's Max Muscle is quite ridiculous by times, and wacky, it seems. But I would like this to be my lineage. You go visit my grave 100 years from now, I wish they would have it on there, the man that named the Hoo-Ha position. To hear an announcer, to hear Sean Ray say that this is the Hoo-Ha pose, I guess they call it. Maybe even make fun of the name. I don't know. Wouldn't matter to me as long as they call it the Hoo-Ha pose. That is what I want my lineage to be. Anyway, guys, hit thumbs up on this video. Subscribe to the channel. Hoo-Ha!